Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. Today, we have the pleasure of having two of our employees, Kevin Fons and Eduardo Diaz, and they're going to be presenting on changes to Business Central warehouse flexibility. And as always, we are recording this webinar. And if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to type them into the questions box. There is a Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen, so you can just type those in there. Or if you have any questions and you want to raise your hand, just feel free to tag on that raise hand option, and we'll unmute you and you can go ahead and proceed with your question. So I'm going to kick it over to Eduardo first to do his introduction, and then we'll begin the presentation in just a few moments. Eduardo?
Yes, thank you, Angie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eduardo Diaz. I'm one of the solution architects. My job is really more on the manufacturing warehousing, and we're glad to present you the latest changes in warehousing.
Yep, and I'm Kevin Fons, and I've been with Novia for probably 8 years. I can't remember anymore. I'm also on the manufacturing and I'd say operations side of the business, everything from sales order to shipment, with warehousing, EDI, kind of you name it. I've been in manufacturing since 1989, so maybe we don't have to draw from a lot of different areas. So I'm going to actually turn my video off now.
We'll lose track of how many years we've been
yeah, it's
working
a
at
long time.
Innovia.
So let's get into it. So Microsoft actually started their warehousing. And I'm not 100% sure if they purchased it or it was an add-on that they developed. It kind of feels like something they purchased and added on. But back in the day, they had two levels of warehousing. They had what they call basic and advanced. Advanced was the directed pick and put away. They still have that, but you used to have to license them separately. And basically, they added a bunch of stuff into the directed pick and put away so that it was an incentive to buy it. The new licensing that came out, I think it was back in the NAV days still, it allowed companies that once you bought a license, you got everything in the system. You didn't have to buy what they called granules anymore. However, you still needed to enable directed pick and put away to get all the functionality that was in there. So next slide. So why not just turn on directed pick and put away? Couple reasons. While you do get more functionality, you will lose a lot of flexibility. It becomes very difficult to modify, especially in the areas of manufacturing. It puts restrictions on how you can add things to bills of material. You can't consume things that aren't on the bill of material. From the manufacturing side, there's a bunch of other things that really kind of limit your ability to kind of set the system up how you want to do it. As I said, it doesn't work great with manufacturing and assembly, and it does heavily limit what you can do. The way the code is structured in the past, you were able to just remove code, but with the new extension model, you can't just comment code out. I will say directed pick and put away does work fairly well in a pure distribution environment. So next one. So current day, we were able to work with the Microsoft product manager over the last couple of years through various channels, meetings, and kind of enlighten him on some of the advanced functionality that could be easily available to non-directed pick and put away users. In the old system, sometimes it was as easy as just commenting out a line of code. And going through this process, they also identified some other improvements that they can make to improve your flexibility, and there should be more of them coming. I just don't have a timeline on those. They started coming in version 23, so it's not a brand new thing, but they did add some in subsequent cumulative updates after that. So the first one I'm going to talk about is they made bin ranking available to a non-directed pick and put away. Bin ranking allows you to rank the bins to be used for bin replenishment and picking. Basically, the higher number, the higher the ranking. So you can set a bin ranking of, say, 500, and that can be filled from a bin ranked as 200, or even with no ranking. But it will ignore bins over 500, ranked over 500, so it won't try to replenish that bin from there. So one, you can see from the diagram, you can see we have kind of set it up a simple example of like my bulk bins would be set with a 200 ranking, and my pick bins would be set with a 500. And doing that, it's saying that, hey, these pick bins can be replenished from the lower ranked bulk bins. So and to do that, we'll go to the next slide. One thing I did note on there is that bins like the ship bin, receive bin, I put those at a very high ranking because we don't want to consider those for replenishment to pick bins. So working with the bin ranking, and then you also then would go in, you could set up min maxes by item for those bins. So like the bulk has a bin, like I said, it has a bin ranking of 200. I've got 8,500 in that bin. There's no min and max. My pick bin, however, I'm going to set a min of 100 and a max of 600. And so once it gets below 100, it's going to recommend it fill to the max, right? So if in this case, if my anytime my bin got below 100, it would recommend to fill a quantity up to 600. So to do this, the next slide, we're going to use the movement worksheet, which is available also. There's a function on there that's called calculate bin replenishment. And if you remember the slide before, I was down to 50 in my pick bin, and my minimum was 100 and my max was 600. So when you run the bin replenishment, it's going to say, hey, pull this from my bulk bin, put it in my pick bin. My quantity is 550 because 600 minus 50 is 550. So one more note on, I had another note. It does not look at demand when it's doing this. So it's purely saying, hey, when my bin gets down to 100, fill it to 600, right? It doesn't know that you have demand for 200, 300, 600, 800 on that bin. It's only purely based on quantity. Also, up until a few months ago, I think with the spring release, this did not work with FIFO, which is first in, first out picking for lots based on expirations. What it would do is it would create the movement, but it would blank out the bin, the take bin or the from bin. They've fixed that now so that it actually works with FIFO using the same logic as picking. So the next thing we would do on this replenishment worksheet is there's a button there that would be what's called create movement. We skipped ahead, but what it will do is it'll actually create a movement, and it's right there in the right above the item A on the left side there, create movement. Yep, thank you, Eduardo. And then so it creates a movement then, and you can go to the next slide now. And so again, as expected, it's going to say take 550 from bulk and put it into the pick one bin. The movement could be, you could do it for multiple items. It might be taking from multiple bins and place and putting it in the place bin. But then this movement can actually be assigned to a user and processed through a handheld, just like a pick. The other thing that's related to bin ranking, which would be the next slide, is you can actually pick by bin ranking. So when you set, and this would be on your location tab, down in the bin policies, there's a place where you can set your pick bin policy. The typical one is default bin, so it always go to the default bin first, but you can do it by bin ranking also. Picking by bin ranking is going to, again, look at the highest ranked bin. It's going to go there and it's going to try to pick from that bin, and it'll go in kind of in order through the bin ranking. So it would try to, like, if you had your lower shelf bins ranked higher and your upper bins ranked lower, like we had before, where the pick bin is 500 and then the storage bin is 200. It's always going to try to pick first from those lower bins, which were ranked higher. Um, so it can work pretty well. I haven't used it a lot. People are kind of used to the default, but it does work, and it's another method for generating your picks. So Eduardo, then you can talk now about a little more of the bin related functionality that was added. Oh, I have one more slide. So you can see here, it's going to try to pick from the lower bins, those 500 ranked bins, before it picks from the upper ones. And the other thing to note is that if you do have FIFO turned on, it will override, and it'll pick based on FIFO. So if you had a earlier expiring lot up in your bulk bin, it'll pick from that bin before it picks from the other bins. So, and that's it for bin ranking for me.
All right, yeah. So Microsoft has added more functionality as well, and again, it's not new. It's probably in the last year or so, but we think that the compounded benefits, it's important to discuss them. So one of the other options that was only available with direct put away and picks is the zones. Okay, so if you have a large warehouse and if you, depending on the type of products that you have, you might want to segment your warehouse into multiple zones. Okay, you're probably using bins, but bins can become part of a zone. So in this example, we have probably items that are small parts, maybe some paints. Okay, maybe you want to group them by chemicals. Think about when you go to Home Depot and somebody asks you, oh, go to electrical, go to plumbing, or go to lumber, right? So you can segment your warehouse into multiple um, zones, okay? And the bins are part of the zone. Another option, and this time I'm looking at the item card. Kevin was looking at it on the location card, but at the item card, you might have some items that you might want to classify them. So for instance, this item, snack bar, okay, I needs to be maybe on a dry place or in a cold place or a frozen place, sometimes in a heated place. Okay, so depending on the type of storage that you want to put those items and you want to segregate them, you can use the warehouse class code to group them together and know exactly how to handle them. Another option that it's right within the same section of the warehouse on the item card is what kind of a special equipment do you need? Okay, so some locations want to, in this example, I'm going to need a forklift. Okay, these are very heavy items, or maybe I need some kind of hazmat. Okay, I need to treat those chemicals in some kind of a special form. Maybe I need special training as well. And so it can be some kind of equipment that you need to be able to pick those items or move those items and so on. Now, how does that come together? Okay, so again, Microsoft added new functionality when you are creating the pick, for instance. Okay, we have that option to pick it by zones. Okay, so you can enable that. Maybe one person is working on a zone, different employees working on different zones. But as you can see, we don't have any of this two fields like the warehouse class and the special equipment. Microsoft missed the mark there. Okay, but it's something easy that we can customize it. So if you really want to pick by those kind of um, data sets or features, you can do that with a small customization. I'm hoping that Microsoft will use those fields now that they're available. Okay, this, as Kevin was mentioning, you have the put away, you have the bin ranking, but you can also have put away templates. And the meaning behind that is that you can create a template and define how you want to put away your items. Okay, Kevin was talking about pickings, okay, picking with bin rankings, but this is the opposite. You receive the product, you might want to have a rule that says, okay, I want to put all my items together with the same item, with the same unit of measured in those bins, okay? And as you go through the list, if that doesn't apply, you go to the next rule, then that doesn't apply, you go to the next rule and so on. So the last rule is if nothing applies, like, I can put all the items, the unit of measures, I'm just gonna take it to any bin, okay? I don't even have to have the items together, but you might want to consolidate them so that it makes your picking process a little bit more faster, meaning that you have all your items together with the same, um, with all the same rules.
Yeah, one thing to add there is one thing you don't see on there is you don't see bin ranking for putaways, and there is an idea out there on the Microsoft Ideas site that we'll talk about later, what the Ideas site is, but it would be nice to be able to put away based on actually like reverse bin ranking. So I want to put things into my bulk bins when I put them away, and then they can move them to pick bins when they pick. So,
Guys, I have launched that poll.
Yep. Angie put up a little poll to see what people are using. Are using manufacturing assembly orders, manufacturing and assembly orders, or none of the above. So
We'll give just a couple more moments to tally up the responses. And it looks like we have 50-50. So manufacturing and assembly orders, and then neither.
Okay. It doesn't really change what I'm going to talk about, but at least I kind of know, what the audience is. So the next slide there, Eduardo. There it is. So this is probably the area I'm most excited about. What Microsoft did, and this is one of the things that we kind of asked them for more options in picking, and they actually came up with a solution, and it's a very nice solution. So what it allows you to do, it allows you to set by document type different picking options, right? So and this is located also on the location card. So you can see you have your traditional where it says purchase, sales, service, and transfer at the top. and then it has production, assembly, and jobs down in the lower section. Now, I'd like them to also put options for transfers in the lower option, because we may want to treat those differently. But anyways, so can we go to the next slide? We'll talk a little bit about how it was, and to a certain extent still is, controlled. So on a sales order, if you set require pick equals to true and require shipment equals to false, the system will say you're going to use an inventory pick for your sales order. If you set your require pick equal to false and your require shipment to true, it's going to say the warehouse pick is used, but it actually, in this case, it's optional. So you can use it or not use it. Yeah, I don't see that used a lot. It's either the first one or this last one, where they set require pick to true and require shipment to true, and then it will make the warehouse pick mandatory. So you would have a warehouse shipment and a warehouse pick in that case, which is pretty typical of what a lot of companies do. The problem we had in the past is that whatever you set here applied to production orders, assembly orders, and everything else, right? So you couldn't use an inventory pick or anything, or an optional pick, or not even pick at all, so for production orders. So let's talk a little bit more about production orders, but this also applies to assembly orders and jobs. So the next slide. So there's two sides of production, right? There's the consumption and the output, right? And when we were back in the location setup, they have two settings, one for the consumption side and one for the output side. So for consumption on a production order, assembly order, or job, you now have the options to say, hey, I don't want any warehouse handling. An example where this might be used is, I'm going to stock all my materials in my production bin that are used in that. I have a cell, everything's set up as cells, or I do have a company right now that all of their production material is stored near the production area. So they all just put it in the production bin. The operators go get it as needed. There's no picking involved, and it allows them to set no warehouse handling. You can also set warehouse pick optional. This one and the warehouse pick mandatory are the more traditional ones used, but the warehouse pick optional kind of gives you another choice if you want to pick or not pick. There's also the other one is the inventory pick, or movement, where I have companies using this where the material handler goes and picks the material. He posts the inventory pick and it consumes the material against the production order. So it basically combines the picking and the consumption into one step. And then you have warehouse pick mandatory. So that's the most restrictive. That's what you typically had in the past, right? So if you wanted to add an item to a bill of material, or if you wanted to consume more of an item, you would have to then add it to the production order BOM, create a pick for it, pick it, consume it. With warehouse pick optional above, you actually you don't have to do that. You can just move that material into the production bin and consume it, or you can consume it actually directly from a bin. But so the warehouse pick optional gives you a little more functionality and flexibility than the warehouse pick mandatory. But depending on how you're set up, you would choose one or the other, or any of these different settings now. So you have a ton more flexibility there for picking product and raw materials. So then on the output side, they added no warehouse handling, which is what we have now, and they added inventory put away. What is missing is a warehouse put away, but I'll come back to that. So no warehouse handling. When you output, it goes to an output bin, or from production bin, it's typically called. The inventory put away. I do not like this, and most companies don't use it, because it would create an inventory put away, and then instead of posting output, you would process your inventory put away and put the stuff into a bin. I mean, it can work for some companies, but what you have to realize then is your material handler is actually the one doing the output on the production order through the inventory put away. Again, in some cases that might work, like you build a pallet. Once the pallet's in a certain spot, the material handler goes and puts it away. When he puts it away, he posts that, it outputs it and puts it into the bin he put it in. So it can work. But what is really missing, and which, again, there'll be, as we discuss ideas later, you can vote for, is a warehouse put away, which works the same as when you do purchase receipts and you receive it into a warehouse, into your receiving bin, and then it would create a warehouse put away to move it from receiving, and use things like the put away template to determine where to put that material. And it's a document then that the material handler can take it from receiving and put it away and say where they put it and post that. So that does not exist right now for production output. We have done mods where when they do an output, it automatically creates a movement. So it's kind of operates similar. So, any questions on consumption and output and the new granular, I'd say picking?
Nothing's come through yet.
Okay, so then Eduardo is going to talk about physical inventory orders, which have actually been there for a while, but they keep adding to and making improvements on.
That is right. So most likely a lot of people have used the item journal or the physical inventory journal, but Microsoft introduced this physical inventory orders. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware, they haven't done like a lot of marketing around it. But the concept is you still do physical counts, okay? Can still do uh, full counts or cycle counts. You compare counts against your expected, okay? Basically what the system says you have versus what actually you have. It tells you, at the bin level, tracking information. So all the functionalities that you will expect are there. You're gonna post the results, and actually let's take a look at the physical inventory orders here. So the way it works is you simply create a physical inventory order, okay? And you ask the system, hey, I want to count a location. Maybe you want to count a range of bins, okay? If you're doing kind of like cycle counts. And what the system is going to tell you is this is what we think we have, right? This is my expected quantity. Go out and count it. Okay, you can assign it to different individuals and so on. Once you create the count, then you can assign it to different individuals. And here's kind of like a result of what the recording or the count looks like. And again, this you can extend this to handhelds. I know multiple ISVs does this a little bit different, but if you want to use the standard Microsoft behavior, you have this uh, physical inventory recording. The way it works, again, you ask your teams to go out and count. Once they count that, okay, all this information, so they're gonna come and say, okay, I'm done counting. You're going to finish that. That this count will eventually come back into our recordings, and it's gonna tell you, okay, we said we have 100 or 10, we counted 10. We said we have 50, we counted 50, and so on. The beauty by doing this is that you don't have to create, compared to the physical inventory journal, it makes it really hard to compare physical inventory journals. So if you remember, you have a batch. Okay, so you might create a batch on the physical inventory journal, create a batch for team one, and then another batch for team two, and another batch for team three. Consolidating them was very hard. There's really no consolidation. Most importantly at the item level, okay, because somebody maybe forgot to record the movement of an item between bins. If you do it the way with batches, again, you're posting either positive or negative adjustments at the batch level, but you struggle to consolidate it. Versus here, everything is in one physical inventory order. You create multiple counts from it, and then all that information simply cascades up. Okay.
Yep. And when you post that, you actually have a record going back in time of what you counted, and you can see all the different counts and who counted what and where and everything else.
So that gets me back to this again. You create a physical inventory document. You ask the system to calculate the inventory by the bins, by the items, by counting periods. So all that functionality is available, just like the physical inventory journal. You will create X number of count sheets and assign that to multiple employees. And then as they are done, again, all of that information rolls up to the expected quantities. And again, from accounting, it's very simple to consolidate that rather than using the physical inventory journal, especially with all those batches and having to, um, you know, why do we have a pickup on batch, but then a negative on a different batch? All of that will be simply together in here. So, like I said, multiple ISVs, especially with the handhelds, extend this. They have their own solutions, but if you want to use the standard Microsoft behavior, um, I will encourage you to use it.
Yeah, and I think you can also export those counts to Excel and then fill them in and bring them back in. I can't remember if that did that or not, but
Okay. My last comment here is that, it tells you if it was recorded or not. And the quantities that you counted. All right. What's still coming? Okay. So again, Microsoft has done a lot of, in the last year or so, a lot of enhancements, but there should be more. Go ahead, Kevin.
so see if you're on BC SaaS and you're current, you'll actually see newer messages than this. They're trying to improve the messaging so that instead of getting messages like nothing to handle, you'll start seeing messages that say nothing to handle. There's no inventory in pick bins, or there's no, all your materials expired, or something that makes a little more sense versus just, I don't know what to do now because it says I can't create a pick, right? They're also making messages actionable. The one below here, this one is not actionable, but the latest version, if you try to create a pick, for example, and you're not a warehouse employee, it says it will say what it says there, but they added onto it where it says, would you like to set yourself up as a warehouse employee? And you can click on that message and go right to the warehouse employee table and then set yourself up. Some companies may want you to do that, but at least but you can control that with permissions, but at least it's there and it's an improvement on no pick created and nothing happening and not knowing why it didn't happen. So those will keep improving and keep coming over time. So the next one. So working with Microsoft. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out, sometimes on the IT side, taking a screenshot was not ideal. Now you have that option to copy details as well.
Yeah, the copy details will tell you exactly, will tell a programmer kind of, or a partner, or even yourself, kind of what area of the code that it's hitting that's causing the error. So it's kind of like a error tracing functionality. So some of these things were talked about with Microsoft. They have ideas. So the first one was pick slash flushing option improvements, where they're talking about separating the pick from the flushing method on the item. So you can determine, right now you have things like pick plus back, pick plus forward, backwards, forwards, and manual. What's missing is a pick plus manual, and that's the one we keep asking them for. And this is kind of their solution to get there a little more easily, is they would just say, hey, what's your flushing method? Forward, backward, manual. And do you want to pick this item or not? And by doing that, you can store material in, say, the production bin for like open shop floor supply type items. And then you can pick the items that you want to pick from the warehouse, like maybe lot controlled items or more expensive items, or larger items, things like that. And so you would create a pick and it would only have those items that were set to pick on it. The rest of it would come from your open shop floor bin. So the one that was missing is pick plus manual. So if people wanted to do manual consumptions, but also only wanted to pick certain items, they couldn't do that. It's still not there, but we need to put a little more pressure on Microsoft, and I think they'll get it done. The other thing is default put away bin. We've done this for a lot of customers, just like default bin, instead of your bin where you put it away may be a different bin than where you're picking from. So this and potentially adding bin ranking to maybe like those put away templates, or having it as a method, could improve your putaways. And then they were talking about adding stocking in multiple units of measure, which some people like. I'm not a huge fan of, because it gets really confusing, but it is in directed pick and put away now, and they were talking about making it available in in a non-directed pick and put away environment. So there's a Microsoft idea site. The link is right in the slide here. I think I can maybe put it in the chat too, because I don't know if you can click on that, but what you can do there is you can add ideas, you can review ideas, you can vote on ideas, and Microsoft actually does use this. Typically, when you put an idea out there, they will respond in anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks. And they may say things like it's not in our plan or whatever, but the product managers are reading it, and then as they get votes, it helps that product manager justify kind of budget to work on certain areas. You're not going to get as many votes in the warehouse area as you're going to get in say just sales order processing, which everybody uses, but fewer, 50 votes in a warehouse idea is a huge number of votes compared to, it would equate to like 200 votes on a sales order idea because of the amount of users using it. But the bottom line, Microsoft does use this. There's some great ideas out there. You can comment on the ideas. You can read other people's comments on them. It's a really nice site to use to get Microsoft's ear directly. So, anything to add, Eduardo?
No. I wish I can click on the link so that they can see you're one of the most active users there. How many suggestions have you added?
Over 100, I think
Yeah,
110 or 120 now, and
there we
30 or
go.
20 or 30 implemented. So that's I'm not going to complain. But we could use your votes on some of them. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Angie, any questions from the teams? Again, we wanted to give you kind of like a general idea what Microsoft has worked on in the last year or so relating to warehousing, not knowing that you were aware of those features. Um, maybe you want to start thinking about them. So Angie, any questions maybe from the team?
No questions have come through just yet, but if anybody does have any, please get those in. Actually, yes, one just came through. Is it possible to have a different flushing method for an item, depending on what area it is consumed from? One may be backward and another may be manual.
So each item has a single flushing method you can set. However, there is an idea out there to be able to set that flushing at the production BOM level also, so that different bills of materials, sometimes you may be back flushing it, other times you might be manual flushing it. So no, not out of the box and not yet. So the idea that's out there on the idea site, I think, was when you create the production order, pull the flushing method, is one way to do it and be able to, well, you actually can change it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Eduardo, on a production order level, you could change it. You can you could have an item that you add to the BOM and make it manual, but you can't do it on a automatic level, put it that way, right? There's no setting in the bill of material where you could set a different flushing method. And then when you create your production order, it would automatically set to that for that bill of material.
But
And then
but it is at the item and on a stock keeping unit level.
yeah,
So if you have multiple locations and if you want to maybe on one location do manual, but on a different do back flush, for instance, you can do that.
is it on the SKU card?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, you could set it in different
So,
locations. Yeah.
um,
And
I'm
just
not
to
in front of
note
it.
that the flushing method that is in the routing has to do with labor flushing, not raw material flushing, right? So it's in the work center, that would go to your routing, and if your work center is set to backwards, when you finish your production order, it would back flush your labor at standard. So anything else? Did that answer your question, Wendell? Okay.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Thank you. It doesn't look like we have any further questions, so we're going to go ahead and wrap. Be sure to visit our resources page for more of our upcoming events, conferences, blogs, um, workshops to review, and just get registered for anything that is of interest to you. So thank you for the presentation, Kevin and Eduardo. Appreciate that. Any last minute words that you'd like to add before we wrap?
No, just I guess give that a try. See what works for you, and we're here to help.
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for attending. And if you're watching on demand, thank you for taking the time out to watch this. And we hope to see you soon at another Innovia webinar. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.